All right, so you're standing in a tackle shop, or maybe you're scrolling online and you're comparing bait casters. One says it has 10 bearings, another says it has 13 bearings, and you think the one with the most bearings probably is the better reel. But the crazy part is, that's probably not true. It could be, but it's probably not. Hey everybody, Mitch here. I think bearing count is one of the most misunderstood specifications or specs in fishing reels. And honestly, it's one of the easiest ways for companies to make a reel sound more impressive than it really is. Now, don't get me wrong, bearings do matter. And the problem is people are looking at how many bearings a reel has instead of where those bearings actually are. And if you look at a baitcaster, there are a few key bearings. And once you understand that, the bearing count, it gets a whole lot cleaner and a whole lot less important. So thinking about a bearing, what a bearing actually does, all a bearing does is it reduces friction, right? So friction between moving parts. Anywhere something spins, a bearing helps it spin more smoothly and typically more efficiently. And that sounds great until you realize not every moving part on a bait caster actually affects how the reel performs. Some parts, they matter a whole lot, and there's some really important bearings in a bait caster, but some barely make any difference or matter at all. And that's where the marketing really starts. The spool bearings are the most important bearings. So you typically have a spool bearing actually on the spool, and then you have this bearing in the side panel that also touches the spool. And this also aligns with your pinion gear. So sometimes called a pinion bearing. And sometimes there can be two of those. And then you have the bearing in the other side panel. Those are your spool bearings, and they're critically important, right? Good spool bearings can absolutely affect your casting performance. Those bearings, they're doing real work. And that pinion support bearing, which I said right here is also a spool bearing, but sometimes, you know, that's also your pinion support bearing. And sometimes you can have a second one on the back side of the pinion gear. That keeps everything aligned under load. And that second one is typically this bearing right here. But sometimes there's even another one. But those three bearings are your pinion support bearing and your spool bearings. The other bearing that you might have that can be important is your drive gear bearing. This sits under your main gear right there. Sometimes you have that, sometimes you don't, but that's also one that can be important and has a purpose. And the last one that's pretty important is the instant anti-reverse bearing. And that's where your handle goes. It's right here. And what this does is it keeps your reel handle from going backwards. When a fish hits, when you're reeling in, it stops that reel handle from going backwards. And the last one that some reels have, although probably not as important, is a bearing on the level wind. Right here, where the level wind goes on the edge. Sometimes there's a bearing there, sometimes there's one on the other side. So the way bearings are listed, you'll usually see something like 5+1 or 10+1, and that one almost always represents this anti-reverse bearing, right? Because that bearing only goes in one direction. It only goes forward. If you try to go backwards, it locks up. It keeps your reel handle from spinning backwards. Now, let's talk about where those numbers start to get inflated. Instead of using bushings in the handles, a lot of companies will add a bearing. In this 13 fishing reel, it has a bearing on each one of the handles. So this reel is 6+1, but two of those bearings are in this handle. Does that make it cast further? No, not really. Does it help you fight fish better? No, not really. So, you know, you can see how it starts to get inflated. 5 becomes 9, 9 becomes 11, 11 becomes 13. So bearings get put in places that aren't really that important. And so, like I said, this one has one in each handle. Some reels will have 2 in each handle. Some reels will have 3 in each handle. That's a way that they can inflate those numbers very quickly without really any performance. And I'm not saying that those extra bearings are bad. They can make a reel feel smoother, sure. The mistake is assuming more bearings automatically mean a better reel. When you think about a reel, there's a lot of key things to a reel, and bearings are just one piece of that. And there's really about 4 bearings that are important. Those 3 spool bearings, right? Your anti-reverse bearing, and sometimes the one underneath the drive gear. That's it. Those are your important bearings. So think about things like the build quality of the reel, the gear design of the reel, the frame rigidity. Is it a plastic frame? Is it a graphite frame? Is it aluminum frame? Is it magnesium, right? That matters. The braking system, is it just a standard braking system, or is it one of these auto-adjusting braking systems that are making things easier, right? And then the spool design, is that spool a light spool? Is it specifically designed to be lighter? That helps a lot. And those things matter more than a higher bearing count, right? You need your critical bearings, and then you need these other things. And just to put it in perspective, think about some of these really great reels out there that people say are great reels that you fished and you know are great reels. Like the Shimano SLX 4+1. It has 5 bearings, 4 regular bearings and that one anti-reverse bearing. The Shimano Corrado, one of my all-time favorite reels. The Corrado K, the DC, and the M all have 6 bearings plus 1. And then another super popular reel, the Daiwa Tatula 100, the SV, the TW 150, all of these have 7+1 bearings. These reels are excellent because the bearings they have are in the places that count and the places that matter. So the next time you're comparing 2 baitcasters, don't ask which one has the most bearings. Ask where those bearings are. That's a much better question. And then focus in on the build quality, the gear design, the frame rigidity, the braking system, the spool design. Those things matter just as much as the bearings. All right, everybody, that's it for this one. If this kind of content helps cut through that marketing hype, hit subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.